What's up out there, everybody? Welcome to episode 188 of the Almadome Audible podcast. This is your host, Jared Kalmus, and I was just chiding my co-host, Adrian Bermudez, for having his hood up for our second podcast, third podcast recording of the week, actually. We all collectively have got to get out of the dumps of this loss to Houston.
Right.
No hoodies over the head in the locker room. Let's focus on the task ahead, and let's move on to Army. And we're going to preview the Black Knights on this pod. So,
right.
Adrian, there's your culture pillar violation. Coach Philo will see you at 5 a.m. For your win sprints tomorrow morning.
Hey, I deserve to run them, dude. We're only allowed 24 hours. Win or lose, we're only allowed 24 hours to react to the game. And then we move on, onward, upward, forward, no rear view. Take it down. Throw it in the back seat, dude, because we're only going straight. And you're absolutely right. But Jared, I don't know if Traylor in the locker room are headed onward, upward, and forward, because during Jeff Traylor's press conferences, there still seems to be a lingering gloom, to put it lightly, almost, man. I mean, he's bringing up U of H. He's still saying that's on me. That's on me. I'm like, the questions weren't even really pointing to the U of H game, but he was like,
it's on the mind. It's on the mind.
Let me bring it up in my answer anyway. I'm like, man, Coach, come on now. Very uncharacteristic of Coach Jeff Traylor.
Yeah, it is. But this loss was a shock, and it's just not something, like we said on our last podcast, it's not really something the team's encountered so far under Coach Traylor. So, I get that they're a little thrown off, but hopefully they can lock back in, because I definitely picked up on the same thing as you. I mean, it really sounds like the team is a little down after the loss. Totally understandable, but typically they're flushing that stuff really fast and moving on. Even think back to like the UNT loss last year to lose the undefeated regular season. I thought the team bounced back from that really quickly. Like in their media interviews the next week, even after the game, they were like, all of our goals are still in place. Right. But you didn't hear that this week in the media interviews. Like they're still like really focused on the Houston game.
Dude, bro, the 1 a.m. I'm sorry text to the single digit guys, whatever. I mean, look, I get it, man. But now it's Tuesday. Tomorrow is Wednesday, and we play Army at 11 a.m. on Saturday, man, or Central Time, that is. There's just absolutely no way you can continue to beat yourselves up, and that's what it feels like. It feels like we're still kind of beating ourselves up over the loss. And look, we said it on the first episode, we were talking about the recap. This was the very first heartbreak of Jeff Traylor's tenure at UTSA. He hasn't truly lost in just heart-wrenching fashion. It just destroys you back and forth where you should have won and you didn't. Real heartbreak. A team's got to go through that together. But man, I don't like the way that we're coming off of this heartbreak, man. I really don't. And yeah, it's got my hood on. It's made me have my hood on because I'm feeling Jeff Traylor's low energy right now, and I need him to pick that back up for me.
Yeah, but I think like one really good practice can really turn this thing around. I think like really one good team meeting can turn this thing around. So it's not something we've seen the team like really struggle with before is getting over loss, right? But I think it's pretty correctable, and I still think this team's going to come out like really fired up and ready to, I don't know, I guess like atone for that close loss and get that first notch in the win column, right? Still feel pretty good about the triangle traveling, right? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely reason for concern. I mean, I think everyone is noticing a little bit, and the coach, staff, and players even commented on it, that the vibe, if you will, is a little bit more down than usual. So
for sure,
yeah,
low energy.
Time to bounce back, man. Time to get out of here.
And I don't feel that energy quite as much from the players' interviews and quotations as I do from Traylor so much. I can't remember they were interviewed today, but he had something like, we told him, you don't need to apologize, man. Like, and talking about Coach Traylor. Yeah. So, so I don't know. I think maybe the players were a little bit more resilient, but if you keep being gloomy about it, that's going to rub off on the squad in the locker room, man.
Right.
So,
yeah, but I mean, knowing how Division I football coaches are, they're so competitive. They're such workaholics. I feel like Traylor is if he's this down on it, like him and his staff are really bearing down on film preparation, on scouting, game planning, all that stuff. So I think it's going to be okay. But
Right.
I also feel like if UTSA loses and have a bad showing, we're going to come back and be like, see, like they didn't flush a loss. They didn't respect, the team 24-hour rule and all of that.
Right.
So, I'm not too crazy on sports psychology. But it has been pretty noticeable and tangible. It would be interesting to like kind of be at practices and see how the team's flying around compared to, a week ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of practice, oh man, getting back, there's a week 2 segue right there.
Yeah.
One thing about playing an option team is your scout team's got to run the option, right? You don't always have a guy that ran the option in high school on your roster. Sometimes you do, right? Especially if you recruit South Texas, where people still run the option and the wishbone and the slot T and all that great stuff. But I've kind of been thinking a bit. I haven't seen any pictures or video. Which player on this roster would you pick to run the scout team triple option look this week?
Wow, that's such a good question. And yeah, and this is that crazy thing about preparing for Army, preparing for a scheme and a look and a team that you never ever see, that you're not going to see after. And it's just 1 week that you've got to prepare for them. And it's so different than any other week of preparation that you're going to have all season. Right. So how do you do that? Absolutely. You've got to have the right guys in place on that scout team. Who would I want to have running quarterback? I mean, I feel like I want to have a guy who has got a little bit of the offense underneath his hands. Right. Give me an Eddie Lee, give me a Cam Peters to be running that. Yeah.
It probably is Cam Peters, but for me, I would pick a guy that looks more like Army quarterbacks look, on the shorter side, really quick. Not that Cam and Eddie are slow, straight line, but they're not like twitchy, real shifty guys, like how Army quarterbacks tend to be. Especially Tyler. Is it Tyler or Tyler? Tyler.
Tyler.
Yeah. I think he's their like primary option run quarterback, right?
Yes, yeah. And
so
he's
I think having
5'8", 183 pounds. Yeah.
So I think a shorter guy like that is great. I think I know the answer, but another guy that I thought of would be Kavorian Barnes. I think would be a really good scout team option quarterback. I don't know if he like knows how to run the reads of the option. Typically anyone who's played quarterback before at least knows read option, right? You watch the defensive end and how they crash down, either give or pull, right? But I think a guy like that, a super shifty and can accelerate really fast, is a really good test for the defense to get ready for like trying to tackle a guy that's really small and really, really fast, right?
Wow, interesting. Wow, what an interesting take. Yeah, I love that.
So it's a good topic, right?
Right, but very, very creative, and that guy's really got to be able. He's got to be capable of running that in practice for it to be efficient, for it to be worthwhile, for it to actually be constructive. I feel
like scout team composition and quality of talent is not something that gets enough attention, in college football in general. I remember like when Johnny Manziel was the quarterback at A&M. I don't know what team it was, but they beat Manziel and they were like, we give all the credit for this win to our scout team quarterback, who was able to perfectly emulate Johnny Manziel's style of play, which is so hard to do, right? Same deal with an option. If you have an option scout team quarterback, especially a guy that's run the triple option before, it's a huge leg up. Like it's really hard to prepare for it, but if you have someone that can actually emulate it, at least to a close degree, it's a huge benefit.
Did Kavorian Barnes have any quarterback experience in St. Augustine?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, dude, scout offensive player of the week was Justin Rodriguez, 5'7", 180.
That's a good one. No. J-Rod, 100% the wing back, dude.
Okay, yeah, for sure,
right?
For sure. Dude, J-Rod, we can see him get up on probably not this season, maybe next. It's like a guy that you get a little excited about.
Sometimes. Yeah, I agree. Now, I think the guy that should be scout team quarterback for this week, though, Julon Williams.
Oh, beautiful call. Yeah, he's only 5'9",
right? He played
And
quarterback at
played
Judson.
quarterback. Yeah.
Very fast, very
Dual
shifty.
threat quarterback. Absolutely.
Mhm,
Absolutely. Can run it, do it with his arm. Oh, he could do it. He could absolutely run it for sure.
Man, that's why you
Great call.
subscribe to Alvin of Audible on Spotify, Apple Podcast, your podcast platform of choice. Where else are you going to get such cutting analysis of UTSA's scout team quarterback for option
Oh
week?
my goodness. Oh my goodness. I love it. I love
I
it.
got one other personnel question for you heading into the Army game. So, pretty common to see teams only play with one cornerback against an option team, because a lot of times they're only going to have one receiver out there, and you want some sure tacklers, some bigger body guys close to the line of scrimmage to cover up those wing backs or the slot backs. So my question to you is, if you got to pick one cornerback for UTSA to be on the field for the first snap of the game when the Black Knights have the ball, are you picking Nick Fortune or are you picking Corey Mayfield? Because Fortune looked really, really good tackling.
Bro, you ain't gotta tell me. I mean, he was unbelievable. Yeah, Corey Mayfield is an area code digit guy, but Nick Troy Fortune played lights out. But what really I think he's the right answer, because you're playing Army and you need someone who is a surefire tackler, which Corey Mayfield is a great tackler, but the way Nick Troy Fortune did not let a single ball carrier get by him on Saturday was unbelievably impressive. He played with a physicality that was just menacing, and I think he's on a roll. You know, he's hot. He feels good out there playing with the team. He's already like in sync, it seems, with the defense. And just his tackling ability was astounding last week. So yeah, I'll go in Fortune. What about you?
I agree. It's so tough to put a 2-1-0 guy on the bench to start a game, but
yeah,
this is just it's a unique week, right? I mean, Mayfield is going to play, of course, plenty this week, and he'll, slot right back into the starting lineup, in the week to come, right? But
yeah,
I don't know, man. I feel like Fortune was just too good and run support and tackling against Houston to not have him on the field,
especially in the run support. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's a little bit bigger than Corey, just a notch, like an inch or two taller, maybe 5-10 pounds heavier, just a little bit larger. Yeah,
he's so physical too. I mean, some of the hits that he delivered as a cornerback, you're like, oh man, he's got some pop to him.
Yeah, well, he was able to get that arm bar out, stop guys just with that, and then kind of bring the rest of his body in. I mean, dude, yeah, I mean, he's just physical, extremely strong. Yeah. I'll take Fortune. That's interesting to watch. We'll see if we see number 2 or number 10 come out to start off on the defense on Saturday.
I'm not mad if they play both of them. I think both of those guys are going to be just fine,
Absolutely.
Playing that boundary, right? Or, just outside of the offensive split, right? I think both would be fine. I wouldn't be upset with that. Especially, Army threw the ball a bit against Coastal. So maybe they come in with a game plan and they're going to play 2 cornerbacks. I thought that was an interesting and timely discussion to have, given how well Fortune played in his first game as a runner.
Very good topic there.
Yeah, appreciate it. So we're going to preview Army real quick. Before we do so, I want to say thank you to our latest Patreon subscribers. Thank you to Derek Martinez for joining us at the booster tier, and Robert Devia for joining us at the insider tier. We just recorded a podcast a couple days ago, so it's cool that we actually had new subscribers to shout out in just a 1 or 2 day time frame.
Awesome.
And as always, thank you to our big money donors: Ben Tovar, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, the Bunch family, Zach Espericueta on the San Antonio Podcast Network, and of course our board of trustees members, of which that list is getting pretty long, man. Wow. DJ Teak, John Otwell, Lino Perez of Los Dos Rowdy Tailgating, Gary and Ruben representing the UTSA Bird King Tailgate, Ray Redding and Meet Me Apparel, and last but certainly not least, our newest addition, Brandon Carell and the Carell Realty Group.
Big shout outs. Big shout outs. Incredible.
All right, man. Let's start breaking down Army. So these two teams are pretty familiar with each other.
Yes.
They have, played in 2019 and in 2020. Were both of those games in San Antonio?
Both of those games were in San Antonio, Jared. Yes, you are correct, sir. So 2019, the last year of Frank Wilson's tenure, 31-13 Army in the Alamo Dome. And then 2020 COVID year, Jeff Traylor's inaugural season with the Roadrunners, 28-16 Army, also in the Alamo Dome.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to check out much of Jeff Monken's press conference for this week. But right at the beginning, in the few minutes that I did watch, he had said something that I was actually thinking about myself last night. Is you look back at that 2019 team and for UTSA and that 2020 team for UTSA, and now you look at them in this 2022 year, and the growth and progression of the roster and the program from each meeting between the Black Knights and the Roadrunners. It's really incredible how different this team is, from each meeting to each meeting in a relatively small amount of time, just 3 years really, to see that amount of progression. I guess it's been 4 years. Sorry, math never quite my strong suit.
But it's a night and day difference, man. A complete night and day difference from the first time we saw Army in 2019. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people on Twitter saw the picture of the student section in 2018, the Liv Moss student section in 2018. There was about 6 people sitting in it versus the student section from Saturday against U of H. It was just
8,000, 10,000.
had overflow students had to go into paid seats.
Right.
So yeah, just night and day, the entire program, night and day difference or something. But dude, I would also argue this is probably the best version of Jeff Monken's Army team. One of the best versions, I think, better than the 2019 or 2020 version that we played. And I don't know if maybe that's not getting enough run, but this Army team is pretty dang good. And I know they lost to Coastal Carolina. They got, I don't want to say manhandled, but Coastal Carolina handled that game. They were in control of that game through all 4 quarters. But Coastal Carolina is an extremely good team. I mean, Army beat Mizzou in their bowl game last year on a walk-off field goal. This is the same Mizzou team that put 52 points against LA Tech last week, SEC squad. And, they've got a lot of holes to fill, and I think that's their weak spot. But Jeff Monken in his time, I mean, he took over the program in 2014, and there was some rough patches getting things going, but I think he's really, really sort of found his stride as being the commander of this squad.
Yeah, that's a good point. At first, I was kind of shocked when you said that, but I guess when I think about it, UTSA has kind of avoided like those really special Army teams. So I guess in like the past 2 years when they played Army, they've been great, but not their best, right? Still trying to figure out what Army is this year. Coastal's an incredibly good football team. UTSA is as well. So, I don't know if Army fans are still going to really know what this team is after these first 2 games. It's a really tough first 2 weeks and out of conference. But they were a great team last year. They went 9-4. They beat some really good teams. Obviously, anyone who listens to this podcast knows how good Western Kentucky was last year. Army was able to take care of them. They beat Mizzou, like you mentioned, and they beat a really good Liberty team as well that had a quarterback going with the first round of the NFL draft, I think it was, right?
Yeah. And then we saw the game last week with them against Coastal Carolina, and Coastal Carolina in the fourth quarter ran 10 straight run plays. They out-armied Army, right? 10 straight run plays to really run them out of that game and kill the chances at a comeback. And that's what you got to be prepared for those that are listening that haven't watched any of our previous games against Army or just unfamiliar with the Army. You hear Jared talking about this triple option. What does that mean? It means they run the ball a hell of a lot. They had the second least productive passing output in college football last season. It's typically where they trend around every single year just because it's not a part of their game. Now, we did see them throw the ball a little bit more against Coastal, but still, it's not a part of their game. They run the ball every single play. Jeff Traylor had a really, really good tidbit in his interview about both sides are going to be cheering. They're going to pick up 3 yards. They're going to cheer because it was a good play. We're going to cheer because we think it was a good play. They're going to pick up 2 more yards. The same thing is going to happen. And that's what it's like watching them. It's hard to watch sometimes. It can be boring and abysmal, but that's the name of the game. They're ground and pound, wear you out, destroy the defense, keep the ball, and just little by little break you apart, tear you down.
Yeah, it's a war of attrition, just like on the battlefield, right? These young men are preparing to go protect their country, right? And they bring that same mentality to the football field, right?
That's right.
We know what we do well. We're going to commit to it. We're not going to razzle dazzle you. Granted, they did a little bit of it against Coastal. It worked pretty well for them. But I think when they're doing that stuff, when they're throwing the ball, even right, their passing numbers are up. Something's not going according to plan. Right.
Their
goal very much is to run the ball 90% of the time. And when that doesn't happen, they were off schedule, they weren't being effective somewhere or something like that. It's definitely not what they planned for.
That's
Right.
whenever they sort of, revert to that plan B is the pass, right? But it's
Right.
never option A.
Yeah. Arguably it's plan C, plan D. I would even say.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. It's running and defense first off and foremost. And you, Jared, you're going to be making the trek to West Point, the oldest continually operated military base in the country. One of the most, just astounding places you could go see. It's on that Grail list of college football games to go sit there amongst the cadets and see the Army. Are you freaking amped? Are you ready to travel with the Triangle, baby? What's up? Tell me about it.
I am. Yeah, I really am. It was so great to see the way that UTSA competed last week against Houston. And, even though they didn't come out with a win, you're still so proud of this program and how far it's come. And, they're showing they can hang with anyone in the country, really. So I'm just ready to see them play again in general. Right. And it being a West Point is just like a massive, massive cherry on top. Like you said, obviously one of the premier road trips in all of college football. So I'm very fortunate to be in a position where I can do that, because I don't think UTSA is going back to West Point for like a decade or something like that. I think it's a pretty long ways out. So I'm really excited. I've never been in that part of the country. So I'm stoked. I hope the weather's a lot better than it is down here in Houston.
Jared does the East Coast, baby. What's
up? Yeah.
Nice.
Doing a little Philly, doing a little New Jersey, doing a little upstate.
And did Midwest Chicago last month. Look at the tour right now. That's excellent, my man. That is excellent. So the line opens up. UTSA is favored, but I think it opened up. We were favored by 1, but then it creeped up, and now it's gotten to 2.5, and maybe it's sort of kind of evened out. I think it's 2 points right now. And then we saw the Stato War breakdown come out. I think it was overwhelmingly in UTSA's favor, 60 or 70%.
That's not very overwhelming. I don't think it was. I think it was like 54% UTSA.
Majority. You're right.
Majority.
60, 70. Yeah. And the spread is. UTSA's favored by a slim margin, but Vegas likes the Road Runners, the consensus pick at least. But then I look at ESPN's Football Power Index. They have a 63% chance for Army and 37 for UTSA, which is very counter to what the spread is telling us and consensus picks are telling us. So it's very, very interesting. A lot of UTSA fans are super sure of themselves after the performance against U of H. And I want to tell everyone, like, whoa, not so fast. This Army team is not a rollover. In fact, Jared, I actually had someone in my ads today. Is this a potential trap game with UT in front of you, U of H behind you, still lingering the doom and gloom? You're thinking about going to Austin and trying to pull off could it be?
It's so wild to be a program like UTSA and call a team like Army a trap game. Man, it
doesn't even make sense, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess you can see where there kind of seems to be that sentiment of like, oh, well, we took Houston's ranked, we took them to triple overtime. Army's not as good as Houston, so this is gonna be a cakewalk.
That's what that's the fan, at least the fan consensus right now. Yes.
And that's such a faulty way of thinking. Like, football is not about who's X% better than team Y, right? It's about matchups, it's about scheme, it's about strategy, it's about preparation, it's about execution, right? Of course, Army doesn't have the guys that are going to go win NFL combine competitions against Houston or even UTSA for that matter. But it doesn't matter. I mean, they're kind of playing like a different game of football even than what UTSA saw against Houston. So you can't really draw any comparison from the Houston game other than to say like UTSA looked really good. They looked prepared. They executed well.
Right.
The mistakes were very minimal. I saw a lot of third-party neutral observers say it's a shame that either one of those teams had to lose because both of them were very deserving of a victory, right? So that's really my takeaway from it is like UTSA looks really good. They look ready to compete, but you can't just directly take that and say they're going to beat Army easily because it's just a completely different beast.
Exactly. And I want to just yell at UTSA fan base, slow your roll, hold the brakes. This is not a gimme game by any means. Army is never a gimme for anybody. So when we look at Army, we talked about that triple option. Let's get into it. Let's look at their offense a little bit.
Yeah. Should we do a little triple option primer for the new subscribers? I know the old heads have heard this speech 100 times, right?
Yeah, but no, I think there's just a general lack of education of what the triple option is. So please give us a good summary.
Sure. So when you hear triple option, that means there's three threats for three different players to run with a football on the play. So your traditional triple option play, you're gonna have the quarterback get the snap, and then he's gonna hold the ball out to a fullback or a tailback that's lined up directly behind him. And the quarterback is gonna have his first read, which is typically like the interior defensive line. And he's going to see how they're committing on defense. Like, are they going to go after the quarterback? Are they going after the running back? Like, what gap are they attacking, right? So then that's the quarterback's first read, is he's either going to have option A to hand the ball off, run it up the middle, or option B, he's going to take off himself and run to the outside, right? And then typically the third option there is a pitch to another, like a slot back or wing back that's kind of sits like where an offset tight end would sit, behind an offensive tackle out there on the wing.
And he's got that wing back's not necessarily the main running back, right?
No.
Okay.
So typically for Army and for most triple option teams is you're going to have more of a heavy set kind of fullback style of guy. To do a UTSA comparison, you would want like an Evans Okacha as your tailback or your fullback. And then you would want like a Jarvion Williams as like your wing back, right? The guys that are more explosive in space when they have a full head of steam, like they can really make anyone miss, right? And that's that third option, like that triple threat.
The pitch
and the triple option is the pitch to that guy who's running from behind the play, right? So you can really horizontally stretch out a defense really well because you've got a threat in the interior of the line, you've got a threat at the edge of the line with just the quarterback keep, and then you got a threat to the far outside, which is the pitch to the slot back who's coming around the backside. And that's just one base play. That is like the just go-to triple option standard play, right? You got all kinds of counters. You've got like jet sweeps from the slot back, stuff like that.
Misdirections,
Right, exactly. And a lot of times you're not going to know what the play call was, right? Sometimes they might just call a give, right, to the running back, and they're just going to roll with that, right? So that's why as a defense, the way to beat the triple option and the real key is to have everyone assigned a responsibility. You have a job to do, whether that's clog this hole up and make sure no one can run through it, or you watch this player and you tackle them every play, whether they have the ball or not. Every player on defense should have a one-to-one assignment, right? The quarterback is the big X factor, right? Because he could throw the ball too, right? So you don't want to like directly assign a defender to him all the time, right? So that's really the key. Is the defense has to be disciplined. They got to do their job, and they have to make sure that their eyes just stay on their responsibility and don't try to make plays outside of what they're assigned to do on that snap.
Stay in your lane sort of thing, right?
Exactly, 100%. Yeah, same as like on a kickoff, right? Like you have these lanes to run through,
right?
Like the ball carrier might be on the other side of the field, and you're tempted to just cross horizontally and get straight line to him, but you really got to stay in your lane and watch out for those cutbacks. Same deal in triple option, right? Like sometimes it's like, oh, I can jump out right here and make a big play, get a big tackle for loss, but then they hand the ball off, right? And goes up the middle, right?
All of a sudden,
or vice versa, right? So you just want to stick to your assignment and just trust the man next to you to do their job.
A lot of discipline involved with guarding that triple option. A ton.
Okay, so now that we've kind of like called out and identified what the roles and responsibilities are of like a triple option offense and like, what the player personnel looks like and all that stuff, let's talk about who actually mans those positions for the Black Knights right now.
Yes.
First guy that really jumped off the tape to me is Tyrell Robinson. So he's a wingback. That's the guy that I was talking about that sits kind of like behind the offensive tackle, tight end position. They're the ones that are, really more horizontal running, smaller, faster guys. This Robinson guy is crazy fast, man. Crazy fast.
Dude, unbelievably fast. 9 carries, 15-yard average, 135 yard. He had a 170 yard that he took off on. But I mean, just the speed on this guy, it's ridiculous. The explosiveness is unreal. It's uncanny. Do we have a guy on the defense that's fast enough to catch him?
Man,
I'm not sure.
I don't know. The defense is pretty fast overall, but I don't know if there's anyone that can catch him.
If he gets by,
if he gets by, right? I don't think anyone's catching him from behind.
He's unbelievably fast, man. 9 carries for 135 yards. It's ridiculous. So yeah, that's Tyrell Robinson. So he's the wingback. He's the guy that's catching the pitches. That option C, that third option.
Right. And he did have 1 carry against Coastal Carolina that was a bit, I guess you call it like an end around jet sweep kind of deal, right? Where it was just a direct handoff to him and he took off running with that one, had another big gain. Definitely the guy that can do the most damage to this UTSA defense, no doubt.
Wow. Nasty. And then on the quarterback slot, yeah, they tend to rotate. Well, in Coastal Carolina, they rotated between 2 guys. That was Cade Ballard and Tahir Tyler, who we mentioned earlier.
I think that's normal for them. We've seen both of those guys play against UTSA, right?
Yeah. So the other quarterback that was playing, who's no longer there. Oh man, what's his name? It escapes me.
It'll probably come to me in a second.
Yeah, because Cade Ballard is a senior, and so is Tahir Tyler. So I'd imagine, yeah, we saw both those guys, but there was one other quarterback that we saw. Oh, Christian Anderson.
Oh, right.
Christian Anderson is who we saw too. Right.
Yeah, but between Ballard and Tyler, Ballard, I think, is more of their passing quarterback, right? Not that he's Peyton Manning or anything like that, but he does have a little bit more comfort go through the air.
When you see him on the field, there's a higher probability that it's going to be a pass play, for sure.
Right. Not that the offense completely changes when he comes in. They're still a triple option team, right? Like, but if it's 3rd and long, they're probably going to put Ballard in, and they might take a shot out of the might take a snap out of the shotgun. God forbid.
Yeah, we'll have to see. And then Tahir Tyler, he's the guy that runs their offense on the ground, and he's got some legs on himself if he needs to go and make some moves and make some stuff happen.
Right. He's a little slippery for sure.
Yeah, just enough.
Doesn't have that like straight line speed that Tyrell Robinson has, but he doesn't need it, right? Like he's trying to get those small pickups, the 5 yards, keep the chains going kind of running style, right? So he's perfect for that.
And then you talk about the big meaty fullback that Army runs as their main option for the triple option. So who is that? Jacoby
Buchanan. This guy is a load. 6 foot tall, 260 pounds. It's a big boy, man. He's a big boy. He can move the pile.
Stocky, dude. Holy cow. Yeah, that's really beefy. This
is one of those guys, man. You can hit him hard, you can wrap him up, but you got to keep tackling him even after that spot, because he's just going to bowl over you, man. That's a lot of force, man. It's just simple physics.
A ton.
So you got to gang tackle this guy. He had a lot of carries against Coastal where he got caught at the line of scrimmage, a yard behind the line of scrimmage. He was still able to get 3-4 yards, right? And that's huge in Army's offense too, right? It sounds like it's not a lot on paper based off what you're used to watching traditional offenses in college football. But for Army, that's really the difference between a win or a loss, is converting that 1 yard run into a 3-4 yard run. It makes all the difference for them.
Right. And then they also distribute it amongst Tyson Riley as well. He had a good number of carries against Coastal Carolina. Not quite the size of Jacoby Buchanan, but a guy that had a significant amount of carries. And then I think Ajon Marshall also had a few carries. But Coastal Carolina, man, they held Army to 200 yards rushing. This is a team that typically averages somewhere 250, 280, 300 yards on the ground. How were they able to hold Army to 200? Was it just unbelievable form tackling, sticking to their assignments? Were they running blitzes? What did you see Coastal Carolina do to keep that Army ground game so contained?
I think the main thing was the interior of the defense for Coastal Carolina did a really good job of just collapsing the middle of the field, right? Very, very few plays where Army really got a surge at the line of scrimmage, right? Coastal was able to really clog things up there in the A gap and B gap. So that prevented Army from, just dive, 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of offense. But it also put them off schedule, right? And when I say off schedule, for those that don't know, a team like Army has like a certain collection of plays they're going to run on 1st and 10, a certain collection of plays they're going to run, 2nd and 6 or better, right? So as you have these kind of negative plays or stopped plays, it gets them off schedule, so they can't call those same plays, right? Because those plays aren't built to get 10, 12-yard pickups, right? So that's why that's why Army had to throw the ball a lot more than you typically see against Coastal, because Coastal made enough plays for -1 yard on 1st down, 0 gain on 1st down. So then that 2nd down play, if you even let them get 4 yards, they're still looking at 3 and 6, right? So they can't really just run a dive and hope that they can push the pile for 6 yards unless they're in a position to go for it on 4th down. That's another thing, though, is that Coastal was so good controlling time of possession and field position,
yes,
which is really Army's game, right? They really beat them at their own game. You always see Coastal. People say that Coastal is like the new version of the triple option offense, but it's spread out with the guy that can throw the ball. And I think Coastal kind of took that heart against Army, and they were like, don't forget that we're an option team and we can pound you guys into submission just the way that you pound other people into submission. That was the main thing for me, man. I mean,
they did. They outgained them on the ground. They had the ball way longer, about 13 minutes longer than Army did. They had 30 first downs to Army's 11, which is super uncharacteristic. Usually you see Army piling up first down after first down, only 11. And very, very uncharacteristic of Army. 6 penalties to Coastal Carolina's 4, and they really harped themselves on discipline, right? Being perfect with the mental mistakes. They had a few of them last week, which is odd, but also could be the fact that they have to fill so many holes on offense. I know the offensive line, a lot of those guys are underclassmen coming in, and so maybe that had something to do with it, but not something you see from an Army team very often. They have somewhere around 1 to 2 penalties a game.
Yeah, and speaking of like those new bodies on the offensive line for Army, I don't know the full situation with a 2 deep there or anything, but on those plays where Army was forced to drop back, the pass protection was really, really bad. I mean, Coastal was getting to the quarterback in no time at all, no problem. And I think the interception that Army threw, he had to do like a jump pass because the defense was right in his face. So as bad as UTSA's pass protection was against Houston last week, much worse for Army against Coastal last week. And it looked to me like a lot of their issues were up the middle of the pass protection, which was always worse than at the edge because it's just a quicker line to the quarterback, there in the interior of the heart of the offense, right? So definitely something to watch. If UTSA can get a tackle for loss, force Army to drop back, to have to throw the ball, I think they're going to be able to get to Cade Ballard or Tahir Tyler pretty easily.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a whole lot that UTSA can take out of Coastal Carolina film room study and apply to have that same success against Army. Yeah, they did a lot of things well. So flipping over to the Army defense then.
Yeah, sure. Not their finest hour against Coastal. I think it's safe to say. They just didn't look as imposing as a Black Knight defense typically does. They still impress me with their speed. They really fly around the bull, same as always. I mean, the team speed is really impressive, just the way they can kind of collapse on a play as it happens. But they missed over 20 tackles against Coastal Carolina, which is shocking.
Holy cow.
They really let themselves get pushed around the line of scrimmage too, which you don't really see from from an Army defense all that much. They're typically really good about standing their ground at the line of scrimmage, preventing the linebackers from getting blocked by offensive linemen, preventing them from getting that second level. But you just saw Coastal again and again able to go and seal off a running route by releasing and getting up to that linebacker. So not something that you see from Army all that often, and something that I am confident the Army coaching staff is going to get fixed up, right? Because they do, like you said, have a lot of newcomers. I think they had some change at nose tackle. Had a couple guys graduate there. But I think that was the main thing that killed them, is they weren't able to control the line of scrimmage on defense, and Coastal was able to just run all over them.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, I thought Army got really worn down as well. Typically Army runs a triple option and they're going to wear a defense down over 4 quarters. Like, you just get tired of like having people leaning on you constantly and, getting chop blocks thrown at you and, all like really physical game.
Right.
But we kind of saw the inverse of that happen, where again, Coastal kind of beat Army at their own game. Get down to the 4th quarter, man. Army's defense was, they were sucking for wind, man. They were gassed.
Yeah.
They rotated some freshman defensive line into the fourth quarter, and those guys just got pounced on, man. Coastal just ran all over them. So I don't know if UTSA is going to be able to have that same effect on Army's defense. And I'm sure Army's defense is going to be better coming off of the game, as opposed to in week 0. But that was a huge difference and a real reason why Coastal was able to just like sit on the ball for like the entire fourth quarter and just wrap that game up with a big win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So names to watch out for on Army's defense. I think the biggest one to look at is senior Andre Carter II, who was the second most sacks in the country last season. Dude is an absolute monster. 6'7", 260 pounds, and a motor that is reminiscent of a young Tawaefa.
Yeah, I don't understand how this guy didn't get picked up by Power Fives, being from Houston, 6'7".
Yeah,
that kind of blows my mind.
Yeah.
So he's interesting. Kind of reminds me of Marcus a bit. Marcus Davenport. He's still pretty raw, right? He's tall, he's long, he's fast, but he doesn't have like really advanced pass moves or anything like that. He tries to get around you more than he gets through you. You know what I mean? Like he's not over here just like overpowering the offensive line. But he's just really explosive on the edge, right? So if he jumps the snap count well, he's just so quick and he's so long that he can get back into the backfield and disrupt a play really quickly. Knowing what we know and know what we've seen from UTSA's offensive tackles, I think that's the biggest matchup of the game, right?
For sure.
Can this kind of makeshift offensive tackle bookend situation do enough to slow down Andre Carter, right? I think that's the main question. I think UTSA is going to have no choice but to put a tight end on Carter's side of the field every time he's lined up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't see them keeping up with that guy in one-on-one situations. No way.
He's a guy that has to be double teamed. He just has to.
Right.
You got to respect his talent and explosiveness there, being a pass rusher. And yeah, we can't afford to have that sort of pressure against this Army team. We've really got to be good at managing the clock, right? And having the offense stay on the field, really try to run these guys down. So, oh man, he's really the one to watch out for, right? He's definitely the most wanted list for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing to point out too is I did notice he kind of ran himself out of some plays against Coastal. So he like over pursued sometimes, and I think there might be opportunities for UTSA to like run a reverse or counter or something like that. They maybe get a big pickup, running to the space of the field that he's vacated by being so eager to go make a play in the backfield. Something to watch out for there.
Right. I think it'll balance out with their holes that they have, the defensive line, especially losing Nolan Cockrell at the nose tackle. And, maybe UTSA is able to kind of move guys around and kind of focus their efforts on Andre Carter and the ones that they really need to be careful of. Oof. Anyone else on the defense worth highlighting?
Yeah. Another guy that caught my eye was inside linebacker named Leo Lowen. He had 11 tackles against Coastal, 1.5 tackles for loss. Actually, a guy from Westlake in Austin, right? So he comes from a really strong program. He looked really good ball player right there. So that number 31 on the interior linebackers is definitely one to keep an eye on. Looked like a big time player to me.
Also noticed that they're returning 7 of their 8 secondary players from last year, and so I think in the secondary defensive backs, there's a lot of talent that returns and a lot of consistency there. Markel Broughton, second on the team with 80 stops last season, and so I don't know if the passing game is going to be under too much pressure. I mean, we saw guys able to streak against U of H pretty well, but they've got a lot of experience in that unit.
I did notice that when the ball was in the air, I thought Army's defensive backs had really good technique against Coastal. But I thought, like, when it was in a situation where the ball's in the air and it's just one-on-one offense versus defense, I thought they looked really in control, did a good job using their hands, looking up for the football.
Turning around, getting their hands up.
Right. But from an X's and O's standpoint, I noticed they played a lot of very soft zone coverage against Coastal. And knowing the speed and the talent that UTSA as a wide receiver, I was kind of licking my chops.
Get the ball to Josh Cephas, baby.
Exactly.
Turn the burners up out here. Let's go.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, we've seen time and time again that when defenses play soft coverage against UTSA's receivers, they get a lot of yards after catch, right? So we'll have to see if Army's going to use that same technique that they use against Coastal against UTSA. I mean, who knows, right? That remains to be seen. But I think if Army continues to play that soft zone coverage, I really like the chances of some of those receivers breaking off some pretty massive plays.
Mm-hmm. Going and looking at the defense now, dare I say, I like UTSA's chances a lot. I like UTSA's offense's chances to really maybe put up some numbers against Army.
Two questions, man. Can they block Andre Carter? Can Frankie Martinez and Vinley Tadafu move their feet quick enough to keep up Carter? And then can they get the run game going again? They couldn't really run much at all against Houston. And I think part of that is, the injuries that we saw at the offensive line position. But I think the other part was Houston's defensive line was really good. And I know that Army's replacing some guys up front. So I think this is a better opponent to get a feel for what the running game is really going to look like for UTSA. And now I got a full week with if Frankie's going to be the guy right tackle moving forward, then you got a full week of him with the starters, that first team unit, and see how he meshes and how he gels with them. So those are the two big questions for me. I mean, can UTSA run for over 100 yards against Army, and can they keep Andre Carter for less than 1.5 sacks? Right. I think if they do both those things, they'll win.
Right. I absolutely think it's plausible that we can do both of those things. If there's one guy that the offense really needs to hone in on to slow down from Army's defense, and then they're able to do that to Andre Carter, at least limit his production. And Frank Harris and his receiving trio is able to have the same output that they had against U of H. Yeah, I think we win this one. I think we win it handily if we're able to do that.
Handily. Whew.
Well, to the same degree that Coastal Carolina was able to. I mean,
sure.
I think we have just as much, if not more, firepower offensively than Coastal Carolina does. Is are we able to do the same job that they did in limiting their rush? They did a freaking phenomenal job in limiting Army's rush attack with just 200 yards. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to be that successful on defense, but I think we can have the same success on offense as Coastal did.
Yeah, that's a great take. I really like how UTSA's defensive line matches up with their offensive line. A lot of the plays that I saw Coastal make, I could just picture Lamont McDougall, Brandon Brown, Cyrus Simon making those same plays as well, right? I think really from a defensive standpoint for UTSA, I'm most worried about those young linebackers, right? Like how disciplined is Trey Moore going to be coming in as a starting freshman outside linebacker, right? Is he going to stick with this guy? Is he going to overcommit on the option to play one guy versus the other? Danye, obviously coming from China, Texas, the guy's seen plenty of option football in his life. But we've seen Danye really jump out and try and make big plays time and time again when he's been at UTSA, and it's worked out for the most part, right? Yeah. But I think a team like Army can make him pay for that, right? If he really goes full speed ahead, trying to hit the quarterback right off the snap, right? He can just tuck that sucker, take off, and get a big run. So those are I think the crux, the main things I'm looking for on the defensive side ball for UTSA.
Yeah, and the way the Taylor brothers played last week, and we talk about a guy as good as a game that Nick Troy Fortune had. Yeah, I mean, if those two can have that same tackling output and be as consistent with keeping the ball carrier in front of them, oh yeah, I like our chances a lot. This is juicy. Looks good. It looks good.
Good matchup, man. It's gonna be good. Great football.
It's gonna be fantastic. It's gonna be fantastic. All right. Are you ready to lay down some score predictions?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's
I was searching for it for a minute. I was letting you talk, and in my head, what numbers am I gonna throw out?
Well, let's hear it. Let's do it.
All right. I'm going UTSA 28. I'm going Army 24.
I'm going UTSA 32, Army 24.
It's a big win.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to pick any UTSA score to be under 30 points. Yeah. Just the offensive output's just crazy. And it was like that last
with
season.
Army, though, you're not going to get a whole lot of possessions.
Sure.
To get that score, they got to score a touchdown on almost every possession.
If their offense is working the way that it should, you're absolutely right about that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's something with my score prediction I definitely try to keep in mind. the limited number of possessions, because I just can't picture UTSA just completely shutting down Army.
And that's something that you have to be so careful of, because if Army goes downfield and takes, 6, 7, 8 minutes off the clock and scores a touchdown, UTSA has to be smart to not immediately respond with a 2 or 3 minute drive, because your defense is going to get destroyed if you're just quick hitting Army and then they're having these super, super long drives in response. And so there's a very, very delicate balance for Will Stein to sort of figure out. Even though he may have the capability to do a quick score, it might not be in the best interest to. That's really interesting to watch.
If you feel like Zakari can get open for a 75-yard bomb on that first play and you're going to hit on it, that might not be the right play to call.
Which is crazy, right? Why it's crazy to think like that. But you got to be slow and methodical against this team.
Yeah, and I'm not saying UTSA needs to do the same thing that Coastal did, like in that fourth quarter, hold on the ball for 10 minutes and just run it nonstop, right? But they do need to be selective. They need to make sure they're extremely efficient with the football. The number one worst thing UTSA can do in this game is have a 3-and-out at any point. Like, that's what's really going to kill them. And we already saw those linebackers get really worn down and tired against Houston. And the linebackers are going to be the most important players for UTSA on defense, right? Those are the guys that have the most difficult reads and have to cover the most ground, right? So those guys get gassed in the second half again this week. Army's going to score pretty easily. They're going to score quickly, right? So it's on the offense to have good sustained drives to keep those guys off the field as much as possible, get them to reconvene on the sideline, talk through what they're seeing. Something too, I mean, it's hard for the coaches in the box to see what's happening in the triple option because all the action's all bunched in together right there in the middle of the field. So having some time on the sideline to talk things out with your teammates and your coaches and say, hey, I'm seeing this guy do this. They're coming at me from this angle. They're changing the block, whatever it might be. You're super critical to have that time to recharge when you're playing a triple option team. I mean, it's just like in war. Like I said, again, sometimes you got to have a tactical retreat to come back bigger, better, stronger, and finish the war, win the battle.
Right. That's right. Man, you bring up the worst thing that we could do is have 3-and-out. We had a couple 3-and-outs last Saturday, my boy. And so there's something to watch out for. There's something to be a little nervous about.
Yeah, totally. Man, that first quarter of offensive production from UTSA, if they have a slow start like that against Army, this game's going to get out of hand.
Sure.
It's going to be a fat L for UTSA.
Sure.
They got to come out ready to roll right off the bat.
That was an abysmal first quarter from UTSA's offense.
Yep.
I mean, there's no other way to shake it. You recover a fumble on the 42-yard line, only move the thing 8 yards, 3-and-out. And so, we cannot afford to do that against Army. Yeah, so that's one thing that's going to have to be a lot tighter, heck of a lot tighter.
Right, absolutely. Well, cool, good preview. It's always fun to talk option football. I had a blast.
Yes, sir.
We did 3 podcasts this week. I don't know if we can do another hour, 10-minute recap of a triple option game just because the game's going to be literally half the length of the Houston game. I don't know. Knock on wood that we don't go to triple overtime again. I'm done with that stuff. But our third podcast this week was a bonus episode on the Patreon. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, now it's time to sign up. What are you doing? Let's go for it.
Yeah, what are you doing?
So we talked about the series between Houston and UTSA. Does it make sense to keep that thing going long term? Should it be extended? What are the concerns on both sides? But probably my favorite part of the Patreon episode that we did this week was really breaking down Will Stein's debut as a play caller, what his offense looked like statistically compared to the average for UTSA last year. I thought we had some really good data on that. So I thought that was a pretty fascinating discussion. We also talked about game day experience in the Amadome for first week. Talked about Conference USA football through week 0 and week 1. And then lastly, talked about the best news that we got in a long time, which is the college football expanding to 12-team format, clearing the path for teams like Army, Coastal Carolina, UTSA to play their way in to these big games, nationally broadcast on the sport's biggest stage. Man, if you're not fired up for, the next couple of years of football, what have you been doing, man? What have you been doing?
If you're not fired up for Amadome Audible Patreon subscriber exclusive content, what are you doing?
It's funny.
Oh man.
Yeah. And I'll try to have some travel impressions as well from my trip. I don't think I'm going to do a vlog for this one. I've got too much going on right now, but
just enjoy your time. Go enjoy it. Don't be working too hard. Go and enjoy West Point. the sights, the sounds, the smells, you know, I mean, it's historic, it's iconic. Take all of that in.
Yeah,
100%.
and hopefully I'll see some of the subscribers and listeners out there in West Point. So if you see me holler, I'll have my Almond of Audible shirt on as always.
Yes, sir. Nice.
So, well, thanks again for all of you guys for subscribing. And if you're in West Point, hopefully I'll see you in West Point. If not, we'll see you back next week to recap week 2 for these UTSA Roadrunners and then prepare for quite the matchup against the Texas Longhorns, something that's been in the making for a long time.